Welcome to the arena. My name is Greg Sindelar, and today we're joined by Representative Lacey Hull from Texas House District 138. Lacey, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Well, so this is not, one of your normal gotcha interviews. You don't have to worry about really hardcore questions. The whole purpose of this is just for people to get to know the people who are actually in the arena making decisions. People always ask me all the time, like, what legislation are you really proud of that you got done? I was like, we didn't get anything done. We didn't take any votes. It's you and your colleagues that take all the votes. And so, but I've always recognized as I talk to various groups that people don't actually know a whole lot actually about their representatives. So let's start maybe a little bit from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and where you went to school and all that stuff. And then most importantly, why you decided to do this. Some people like me would say, like, why are you crazy? You want to be an elected official? But why are you fighting the good fight here in Austin?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in House District 138, the district I represent. I went to school there, and that's where I grew up. And I went to University of Houston, majored in political science and history, and I just was always interested in it.
So you're Houston through and through.
Yes, Houston through and through.
So we'll get to what's wrong with the Astros and how do we fix that. I'm from Dallas, but I married a Houstonian. And she's very down on what's wrong with the Astros right now. It's like, it's okay, but it's okay.
It'll be okay.
They'll figure it out.
They will.
They'll figure it out.
Yes, it's Houston. It's the Astros. Yeah,
All
we'll
right,
figure it
so
out.
you're Houston through and through, grew up in 138, went to University of Houston, go Cougs. What made you decide, hey, you know what? I want to be an elected official.
It was becoming a mom for me is what really moved me from being just a voter, I'd say. And while obviously I majored in political science and history, so it was always an interest of mine, but running for office was never something that I wanted to do. So I always tell people never say never, but it was literally never something that I wanted to do. But becoming a mom moved me from being just a voter to becoming more engaged and coming up to the legislature and testifying on bills and bringing my son with me at the time. And
he's here off camera.
Yes, he's here. And so he was like 2 years old coming with me to the Capitol and then helping other members get elected. So campaigning and putting signs out and standing at the polls. So I just
block walking.
Yes, block walking. It's brutal. Yes.
Especially in the Houston heat and humidity.
Oh, it's not pleasant. No. But you just do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I just got plugged in and I became a precinct chair. I just wanted to help Republicans win. I just wanted to see Republican victories and help Republicans just to get the vote out. And so I became a precinct chair. And then my predecessor decided to retire. And Dwayne Bohack, great guy. And so, it was who's going to run, who's going to do this. And I said, well, I'll help find somebody, but I'm not doing it.
It's their famous last words.
Yes. And I was like, okay, well, if someone gets in that I can support, then I'll back out and I won't do it. Well, that never happened. And it was a redistricting year. So I knew it was a 50-50 Republican Democrat district. So I knew it was going to be tough work. And so I knew I was the one that I was going to pour everything into it. And I did. And so we were able to obviously win the seat, hold on to it, and then widen the margin. Yeah. But that's why it was really becoming a mom and wanting to leave it better than I found it for my son and next generation.
Well, I love that. And I think that's, one of the things I always tell people when they tell me like they're expecting, especially their first child, is like, one, you're going to fall in love in a way you've never even you don't really understand. Right. And it just changes all your priorities in life. So that's truly wonderful. So your time, you've been now a few sessions here in Austin. What has met your expectations and what has been like, man, I never would have expected this, and this is part of the job they never tell you about?
Gosh, well, I would say it's different, right? Going from kind of grassroots and coming up here, and while I was engaged, being elected is completely different. And so that it was just really interesting. Things that I thought were, oh, that's how it is. And then it's, oh, that's not how it is. Yeah. Realizing really the things that questioning everything. Oh, all these people putting out all this information. And I realized, oh, it's really not. That's really not how it works. So that's really not how it is. Yeah. And once you are in there doing it, and but I'd say the amount of my colleagues who are just have so many different passion areas, and we all can come together to figure out everyone's expertise and, passing all these different policy areas and just people's passions and their heart for serving Texas. So that's been really awesome to see. I'd say that the things that I wasn't expecting, how different campaigning is from the actual job, right? The politics part of it is very different from the job. I love the policy work. Yeah. That part is great. But the campaigning part, it's very different. It's not my favorite. But some people, they really love it. Yeah. Some people love that part.
I think it's good to know. I'm glad your son has done it, because it's an important part of the process. But, at the end of the day, what I always try to explain to people is that politics is actually the art of what is possible. Yep. And in the House, you're working with 150 people. You're trying to get things done, but you have to get 76 of them right on the same page, and that is always difficult. But as a conservative, I'm not trying to make it easy to pass legislation.
No. so. Listen, as when people talk about it, I'm like, listen, you don't want us there full time, and you don't want us there year round. There's a lot of people with a lot of really bad ideas, and we don't want every idea to pass. We don't want every bill to pass. That'd be really bad. We definitely don't want that. I like that it's difficult. The whole process, right, is designed to kill bills, and it should be that way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. Well, but when you're thinking about things you want to pass, right, and you're thinking about your district in particular, as you talk to constituents, whether it's block walking, town halls, et cetera, what are the things that consistently come up to them as like, hey, these are the most important issues. These are things that we expect you as we head into the 90th to hopefully get done for us?
I'd say the common themes are affordability, whether that's a lot around healthcare, the cost of insurance, whether it's home insurance or car insurance or health insurance, whatever it may be. That I'd say I'm hearing that a lot. And crime. Being in Houston and Harris County, it is a consistent problem. We passed bail reform last time. I've done a lot of legislation to work and support victims of crime, but it's a constant uphill battle. But I'd say those are kind of the key things, are supporting victims of crime, crime prevention. And, in Harris County, which is a dumpster fire, that, all of these,
technical term.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently it's acceptable to be out on like multiple capital murder bonds. Yep. And I'm like, what is happening? I thought all humans, no matter our party affiliation, there were just basic things that we all agreed on just as human beings, and that you don't let violent murderers out on the street. But apparently times have changed. I don't know. So
someone who lives in Austin, it's also common here. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it makes no sense. Yeah. It's absolute insanity. Yeah. So we passed bail reform last session, but I think we're still going to have more work to do. So
so are you thinking about legislation that helps really go after these? It's really a DA problem, right? Like continue to go after these DAs who just refuse to hold these criminals accountable.
Well, there's that, but it's also what we see in Harris County are the judges and the magistrates that are saying, oh, here, you can get out on what I call basically a pinky promise. Yeah. You pinky promise to come back and it's going to be fine. And you pinky promise to not commit any more crimes. Okay, sounds great. And it's like, what planet? Yeah. No. So, I just would like to get back to the place where just all humans agree that violent criminals should not be out walking the streets. And so I think that's where we have to figure out more on at least in Harris County, the judge and magistrate issue.
Yeah. I think that's right. Well, one of our very first conversations several years ago was, I believe, about foster care, if I remember correctly. I know it's something you've been very passionate about, and you talked about, the whole reason you got into this was becoming a mom and really looking out for kids. And so as we head into the 90th, I know that's one of the things that will be a priority. One of your colleagues, Representative McLaughlin, has raised the issue of, some of the horrific things we've seen on roadblocks and other areas where, kids are exposed to certain things and maybe even put in situations that they're not quite ready for. So as you look into the 90th session, what do you think are some of the things that we should be looking at to ensure that we are protecting our most vulnerable and our children and making sure that we're not exposing them to things that are harming their developing brain and their ability to be successful and prosperous adults?
Yeah, I'm really glad that Representative McLaughlin brought that to Speaker Burrows, and that Speaker Burrows made it, as a huge priority for interim charges and for next session. And my son's here; he can tell you that he's not allowed to play Roblox, and all the things that he's not allowed to do online, and no social media.
Mom.
And yes, fun sponge mom, no fun.
That's right.
But it's again because of things like what Representative McLaughlin brought to Speaker Burrows, the violence, the fact that you can recreate a school shooting and all these things. And I know that Roblox did take that game down, but I see this as a larger, really an industry problem, not just Roblox, because you could go through any game, any app, social media, chat apps, anything like that. And there are tremendous dangers for kids online. And I think it goes back to parents having conversations of tricky adults and things online, but it's so beyond that. And some people will say, this is just the parents, and the parents need to, pay attention to what their kid's doing. If only it was that simple. If only. Because you can have everything locked down at home, but predators are very smart.
Yep.
And they are always around that. And just because things are locked down for your kids' devices, that doesn't mean they're friends at school or other people they go to, other houses, all these other things. And you just don't know. And parents are trying their best, but these people with bad intentions are very smart with all this technology. So how do we set industry standards? How can Texas lead to keep kids safe online? And set these industry standards across the board. Yep. And so I think that's what we're looking at going into the 90th is how do we do that? And how can Texas be a leader in the nation to keep kids safe online?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And if you've read Anxious Generation,
yes,
and if you've seen the studies, right? Like we know a lot of this stuff is actually really bad for kids and their developing brains. And I've had debates and arguments with my more libertarian friends about this issue, but none of them so far have advocated that we should open up cigarette sales and alcohol sales and pornography to children anymore. All right, they don't want to undo all of that. So to me, it's a very similar state that we're in with actually what the software, I guess, is doing to our young kids and as they develop.
Well, and I would argue that consumer protection is a core role of the state. And so I would say that that's what this is. We are protecting children and keeping kids safe, and we protect them from a lot of other private businesses that you just talked about. And so how is this any different? The state has a role in keeping kids safe at schools and childcare facilities, daycare, foster care. And we're looking at, obviously now, the large conversation of summer camps, which I would say, again, is the state's role. And so we keep kids safe in all of these other areas. So why would online be any different?
100% agree. Well, please know, however TPF can help on that, we're all in. It's one of our top 10 issues as we head into the 90th.
Awesome.
We're going into another area where I think we've kind of not paid attention to as a state and really a country that's kind of come a little bit more in vogue, and that's the Make America Healthy Again. And obviously you were kind of at the forefront of that last session and making Texas healthy again. Can you talk a little bit about what the state is looking at and kind of how you see us building on that to ensure that we actually have a populace that has access to healthy foods as opposed to just junk foods and all these other things that we put in our bodies?
Senator Kolkhorst and I was so glad to partner with her on that bill. I mean, it was incredible. We're leading the nation on. I mean, other states have literally copy pasted our bill and have tried similar
Classic
things.
Texas. Everyone just wants
to come,
which is great.
Yes,
do it.
And we gave the White House momentum in their efforts to do all of this, and so I'm just so proud that we were able to get that done. And I joke and called that bill the Lobby Employment Act of 2025 because people picked up from D.C. and moved to Austin to try and kill that bill. Entire organizations were formed to try and kill that bill. Yep. So there was tremendous pressure all along the way, and the pressure that Governor Abbott had to veto it. I mean, huge. So the fact that he signed it says a lot about who he is, too. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was incredible that we were able, I call it like a David versus Goliath sort of thing, because it was incredible what we were up against. And so Yeah, for the 90th, I mean, I'd say it's more, right, we're looking at preventative care. All of these things, and you're looking at the Make Texas Healthy Again, it's all preventative care. How do we get the steps in place to begin with so we don't have all of these chronic health problems, which cost so much money?
Right.
And when we're looking at commercial insurance, yes, but when we're looking at Medicaid dollars and taxpayer dollars going to Medicaid and all that we are funding, we want to make sure that if taxpayers are going to foot the bill, shouldn't we make sure that we are having the best possible outcomes and at a lower cost? And so that's what we're looking at. How do we get creative? And so we did some of that last session. We did nutritional counseling as an in lieu of service in Medicaid, so which means it has to be medically beneficial, cost neutral, and evidence-based. Okay. So it's not an extra cost. So how do you teach people with the changes in SNAP? Let's teach them how to maximize their SNAP benefits, to choose healthy foods. How do you cook it? Some people just truly don't know. So how do we make this generational change? Nutritional counseling, lactation consulting in Medicaid, things like that. While different buckets of money, a few sessions with a lactation consultant is far less expensive than a year plus of formula. And we know the health benefits for mom and baby of breastfeeding. So it's creative things like that we are setting the groundwork for healthier Texans and at a lower cost. And so that's what we're looking at. Access to health care, preventative care, more things along those lines. So.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think the healthcare industry is focused too much on managing sickness and less on preventing it altogether. And I think as a society, we've just kind of accepted certain things, and we don't have to, right? Like, we can, if you eat right, you exercise, you get good sleep, all these things, like, you will have not only a longer life, but also a more productive and happier life.
Yeah, we're great at if you have some acute issue, you get in a car wreck, you have a heart attack, something like that. Of course, our care is some of the best in the world, but it's the chronic health conditions that we are terrible at. And so how do we get better at preventing those and treating them? So
that's right. Well, and then kind of on that, right, like obviously you are chair of the Texas House Human Services Committee. The vice president is leading the charge on fraud, waste, and abuse at the national level. Is something I know that you've looked a lot into, and making sure that the dollars we're spending are actually going to the people who need it and aren't being wasted and sucked up by those who are actually wishing to take those dollars for themselves. So can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the system and some of the things that we can put in place to ensure that our dollars are actually going to those in need that actually need these services?
Yeah, so it's incredible. I love that people are talking about this now and like talking about Medicaid. I'm like, oh my gosh, people care about Medicaid now. I'm not the only one.
Not everyone's falling asleep.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
you care about Medicaid now too? This is awesome. But Texas has really been a leader in the nation for preventing fraud, waste, and abuse. And an example is we have our own OIG. Not every state does. And so we're able to do a lot with getting those dollars back and investigating the fraud. We're not like Minnesota and California. We have so many steps in place to prevent a lot that you would see, like some of the daycare nonsense that, in Minnesota and all that. We have so many
all the hospices in one building in California.
There's so much of that we have so many steps in place, even with our licensing, that things like that just wouldn't happen here. But even things, I know the autism has been a big discussion in the behavioral treatment and all of these things that we have seen in other states and all of the fraud. Well, we have a lot in place that I believe it's about 85% of the visits have to include a parent. So it's not just daycare. There's steps along the way, checks to make sure that are these services working? Is the child improving? Other states don't do that. So we have a lot of steps in place. The SAVE database to check for immigration status. Not every state is doing that. We've already been doing that. So there's a lot of things that Texas has already done. And so I know we're partnering, Texas is partnering with the federal government on that to figure out what else can we do, because we are already leaps and bounds ahead of other states. And so what else? And so we're looking at that. And there's going to be some new things that pass in the One Big Beautiful Bill that go into effect in the fall. And so we're just already trying to see what about, okay, for next session. So we're looking at that. But again, we're just so leaps and bounds ahead. So a lot of national organizations say, these are the things we recommend states do for fraud, to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. It's like, well, Texas has done all of them. So we're like, okay, what else can we do?
Yeah.
So
we can lead again, and people can copy and paste that.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Well, and I know the Texas Regulatory Efficiency Office is coming out with some of their initial stuff, and I know they'll be getting into this space a little bit too. Is that right?
I think so, yes. Yeah. And then what's going to be interesting too is, all HHSC and a lot of these different agencies are up for sunset. Yep. So how can we best make sure that everything is as efficient as possible? And we have a new commissioner within HHSC who is incredible. And so I'm confident that, everything is going to be looked at and making sure that we are as efficient as possible. Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because you think about the amount of dollars, the percentage of our budget that's going there, right? I would say, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but we seem to be actually ahead on the medical side more in effective and efficient use of those dollars than we are on the education side right now. But I think there's more to do actually on both fronts. All right, last few questions. We'll get into the really, really hard stuff. So we've talked about a few of the things that you've championed and pushed forward. But outside of those, I would love for you to talk about, like, as a legislator, what's the thing you're most proud of that you've helped get across the finish line?
I'd say it's the Make Texas Healthy Again was one of the biggest things for me. I joke and say I was MAHA before MAHA was a thing. And so I was like, oh, finally, all of this I can talk about it. Yes, this is awesome. Right. So, but I'd say outside of that, it's a lot of the work around crime victims. And I've done a lot of work with Senator Colcore, Senator Paxton, and Senator Huffman on all of these different issues. And we did some really big lifts last session, changing things for survivors of sexual assault, going through the legal process, and game changers. Yeah. And so on that, I'd say it's hard, but I think my very first bill that I passed in my very first session, John and Joseph's Law, and that came from block walking. I always ask when I block walk, what do you care about? What issues do you want us to see work on? Yeah. And I usually get things that kind of fit in the same category buckets. And this one was something I had never heard before. And this very sweet man named David, who told me that the next day he was going to another city in Texas to have his son's body exhumed. He had been buried as a John Doe and was looking for him for years, and his adult son. And he told me that there was this national database for unidentified remains and missing persons to match them up, but there is no requirement for states to use it. And so depending on the jurisdiction and law enforcement, they may or may not use this database. So you could go missing in one area, and let's say, sadly, if passed away and your unidentified remains were found somewhere else, that may never get matched up. And so I think most people, I never knew that. Yeah. I just thought, well, there's some police database and they all just use it.
I think people always assume like, no, they're all talking to each other.
Yes.
And then you realize like, oh,
they're not. And so I broke the cardinal rule of block walking, at least in Houston. And I went into this man's house and I was like, oh gosh, please don't kill me. Yeah. But because in Houston, you just don't go into people's houses. I know in some of like my other colleagues in rural areas, and it's fine. And maybe they'll have you over for dinner. Not in Houston. That's right. Absolute no. So I went into this man's house and he showed me this database and we talked all about it. And so I said, look, and this was in my primary. I said, once I get through the primary, I'll let you know. And then so I got through the primary and I was like, I got through the primary. Now I have to get through the general. So I got through the general, and like a day or two later, I emailed him and I said, I won the general and I want to help you. So every time I talk about it, it makes me tear up. David introduced me to an incredible woman named Alice who had a similar story about her dad, John. And so her dad went missing. And for, I think it was 12 years, she searched for her dad. And turns out he ended up being buried in Harris County and as an unidentified Hispanic male. She had gone to the Harris County morgue, showing a picture and saying, is anyone in here? That matches this description. And they said no, but he was in there for a couple of years. Wow. But it was a jurisdiction issue between Houston and Harris County and just how often these things happen. So she told me the same thing about this database. So we got this law passed, and it's called John and Joseph's Law, after David's son and after Alice's dad. And so law enforcement has a requirement for the long-term missing. We weren't trying to put more burdens on law enforcement. This is for the long-term missing people to be able to match up the missing persons with the unidentified remains. And so these families who are going through what must be hell on earth, to be able to give them some closure. And it's just, it has been life-changing for so many, for these families to be able to have closure. And so I know at the time, this was a few sessions ago, I think we were the 12th state to do it. So I'm not sure how many have done it now, but the goal is every 50, state, nationwide. So it's things like that they're problems you don't even know exist. It's people and problems that you don't even know about. And I'd say Andy Kahn from Crime Stoppers always says that victims of crime are the one party who didn't choose to participate.
That's right.
The judge chose to be there. The attorneys chose that career. And obviously the criminal chose to
commit the crime, yeah.
Right. So it was the victim of crime who did not choose that. And so to be able to give them, their family, some closure, even though it's a heartbreaking outcome, they are just thankful that they know. Yeah. And so I'd say that is the thing I'm like most proud of. It's hard because we've done so many great things, but to be able to do that, and that it came from block walking, meeting constituents face to face. And I've done some other bills for constituents, and like that's where really great ideas. I would have never known that.
Yeah.
Would have never known about David and Alice and their son and their dad if I hadn't block walked. So yeah. That's amazing. And I think that's the part of like legislating that most people don't really think about, right? Like you think about like the big fights, whether it's education funding or school choice or property taxes or whatever, but you don't think about these are the things that really, really affect. Maybe it's not a large amount of people, but the people it does affect, it is a tremendous impact on their lives. And then you think just going forward, the hundreds and thousands of people who will be affected by what you did that actually will never know what you did for them. And that's like the truly special part of what you do every day as a lawmaker. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've done a lot of bills on helping victims of crime and domestic violence. And again, it's people who will never know any of us even exist. They will never know us. We will never know them. But hopefully the process and everything, they are safer because of it, and just better off for it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, the issues that you don't hear on the news. I think that's.
Yeah, they need someone to speak up for them, right? Yep. That's exactly right. All right, last question. Maybe the hardest question.
Hey.
I don't think you'll tear up on this one though. I always like to know, the very first one of these I ever did was with your colleague Tom Oliverson, and we talked about restaurants and Whataburger and all these things forever. But I spend a lot of my time going around the state in various areas. So when I'm in your district, where should I go eat? Like what's a really good place that's like, man, this is 138.
So my district is very diverse. It's like a microcosm.
Yeah, it's Houston.
It's Houston, right?
That's right.
And so we have really good Korean restaurants, some really good Vietnamese restaurants. We just got a really good sushi restaurant, some barbecue. But I'd say, we have some really good coffee shops too. Oh gosh. Okay. I think my favorite right now, they've been open for like a year and a half. It's a little Italian shop. And they're so precious. It's this husband and wife. The husband's from Italy and he's the chef, and the wife helps run it. They are just precious. And they import, so the flour and everything, tomatoes, olive oil, everything is from Italy. So it's really high quality. So it's Maha. It's Maha restaurant. And you can go, it's like a grab and go where you can go grab pasta, sauces, and all of this to go make at home. But they have sandwiches that they make there and that you can eat. And they're not frozen. I mean, you just go and grab it for lunch. But oh my stars, they are incredible. And it is a problem. And it's pretty close to my house. And it's called Casetta Cucina. Casetta Cucina. And it's this little Italian shop. And
just in Houston on Monday.
I know. You missed out.
All right, next one. Next
so
trip.
they only have like 3 tables, 1 inside, 2 outside, because it's really more of a grab and go type place. But oh my gosh. And they do Casetta Cucina. Okay. Next level, life-changing good.
Nothing like a good Italian sandwich.
Yes.
Nothing better than that.
It's so good. The pastas, everything there is just incredible.
Well, now I'm looking forward to my next trip to Houston.
Yes, you have to go.
Maybe I'll see you there.
Casetta Cucina.
Cucina. Okay, very good. Well, Representative Hull, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for what you've done, as I said earlier, for all these people who actually will never know. And thank you for being in the arena. It's actually a really important part. And thank you for taking some time today to talk about it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And thank each and every one of y'all for joining us. And we will see you on the next episode of The Arena.